Alright guys, Fuller coming to you with another video. I hope all is well with you guys. I always do videos, annual videos, talking about, paying homage to those who, it was their birthday today. So, this is no different. I have to do one on someone who did it like nobody I ever known. Someone who did it and there will be nobody to ever do it like he did it. You know what I mean? And his name is Amilcar Cabral Lopes, also known as Abel Djassi. So, he's had a lot of impact on my life. The first thing is that, he shaped my whole existence. He shaped my family's existence. And the reason that is because, my pops, he was a simple, like cattle guy. He was a simple, guy who worked the land. He tilled the land. That's what my dad did. But, Amilcar Cabral convinced my dad that, you can be a militant, come free your country. And lo and behold, my dad decided to do so. So the thing is that, Amilcar Cabral, sparked something that my dad never knew he had. And my dad had militancy, This was brought out of him. And the reason why Amilcar Cabral was so adamant of recruiting people is because if he didn't recruit them, then the Portuguese were most likely going to recruit him. Believe it or not, the Portuguese was notorious in recruiting other Africans to fight for his army. So you had, of course, blacks killing blacks, unfortunately. It happened because, Portuguese would give them promises of high salaries. The Muslims, there would be promises of Hajj and whatnot, a pilgrimage and everything like that. So that's one thing about it. So, Amilcar Cabral just put that in a lot of people who didn't think that they can do such things, didn't think that they can be militants in that kind of way, because you have to understand something. The Portuguese, unfortunately, because of strategic United States interests, they were getting backed by the United States. So you had, the Portuguese being bombed with NATO, having NATO bombs, having napalm and things of that sort. So because, the Portuguese had these resources, it was like we were going against superpowers. We were going against big superpowers, you know what I mean? But Amilcar Cabral still had the conviction that he was going to be successful in the struggle, So that's one way that he impacted, my family's life. Another thing that impacted me about Amilcar Cabral is the fact that, and this is very heavy. This is very, very heavy. The thing is with Amilcar Cabral is that he is of Amilcar Cabral's roots are in Guinea-Bissau and Cabo Verde. However, Amilcar Cabral was very adamant about, different African struggles in the Lusophone, Africa. So when Amilcar Cabral was in Portugal as a student of agronomy, he got with other Africans from Lusophone colonies. He got with the Angolans, he got with the Mozambicans, he got with the Sao Tome, he got with all of them. And they questioned okay, well, is this how we want to live? Is this how we want to have our lives, like being under colonial domination. This was a question for Amilcar Cabral. And so that question was, answered by the fact that they struggled for their independence. Now, here's the thing. And this is one thing that sticks out to me, and one thing that has affected me as well. So Amilcar Cabral, okay, he was, I want to say he was a founding member of the Angolan Liberation Front called the MPLA. Now, granted, Amilcar Cabral is not of Angolan descent. However, he still put his feet forward and wanted to be a part of founding the MPLA, right? Now, here's another thing that, and the reason that affected me, here's a man who's from the other side of Africa who decided that, he was going to have a founding part in the MPLA, which is in the other side of Africa, be it with Augustine Nieto. Okay? Now, here's the thing. The way that affected me is, I want to say that, how should I say this? I want to say that when I looked at the Eritrean struggle, like when I sat down with like my Eritrean friends, talked with different Eritreans and read into their struggle, read into what they had to do for independence, I became completely interested in it. I became a supporter of it, So again, I read books about EPLF. I read the fact that, they had to fight many colonialisms. They had to fight against Italian colonialism. They had to fight against British colonialism. And they also had to fight against Ethiopian expansion, imperialist colonialism. Because be it as it may, Ethiopia was always a expansionist type of territory. The thing is Ethiopia at one time wanted all of East Africa, basically. It wanted Somalia under its reign, and it wanted Eritrea under its reign. But be it that these people have different tribes, different languages, and what have you, they didn't want that. So that's why the Eritreans fought for their sovereignty. You know what I mean? And with that being said, this was a long fight. But that's for another time. This is definitely for another time. Now, granted, because of my interest, because of my research in the EPLF and what have you, many other Eritreans they say, oh, he's one of us now. Because I did the time and I did the research to read about their struggle. And so this is one thing that I picked up from Amilcar Cabral, because you got to look at it this way. He didn't have to involve himself in the struggle of Angola. Technically, his only struggle should have been the struggle of Guinea-Bissau and Cabo Verde, but, he decided that, hey, I got to struggle with them here too. So that's one thing that affected me deeply with Amilcar Cabral, was that part of the struggle. You know what I mean? Now, another thing too is that Amilcar Cabral was a pragmatic guy. Okay? There's one saying in a book: big words mean nothing. And so this is the thing about these conscious and these Hotep people. They use all these big words, but I'm like, okay, well, these big words don't mean anything. These big words just wow people. Amilcar Cabral was all about the action. So for example, he used what he can have at the time. You know, there weren't that many hospitals in Guinea-Bissau. There weren't that many schools in Guinea-Bissau. He used what he had. He started just a study group in a library. And that study group eventually became a full-blown revolutionary movement known as the PAIGC. But he didn't start out with the resources to do it, okay? He didn't have like fundraising. You know, he didn't have that, okay? So what he had to do is use the resources that he had available. And so the resources he had available was study, books, and just discussions and thoughts with others, like-minded people. And then that's when he became a diplomat. You know, he decided to go to, you know, decided to go to, you know, different parts of Africa to explain his cause. You know, he went to North Africa, got support from Morocco, got support from Libya, got support from Algeria. He went to, soldiers were training in Morocco. He went to the People's Republic of China, which was under a socialist government then. Guinea-Bissauans went to China. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. All these people went to these places, right? And so with that being said, you know, that's another thing, is that he used who would help him. You know, so he had students, including my dad, training in the Soviet bloc in Eastern Europe. I think it's called Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Russia, you know, Bulgaria. He had like students were training there, and they brought the skills back to the struggle in the bush. And you know, that's one thing that people need to understand about Amilcar Cabral, was the fact that he did that. You know, the problem is with a lot of these hoteps and stuff like that, they think that when you get a skill from, like, let's say a Western institution, that you're selling out or something like that. And in reality, you're just taking a skill that's needed to add to your people, you know, so you can eventually like open up things within your community to teach that skill. But they you know, they don't look at that as much, you know. Another thing about Amilcar Cabral that I really like is that, you know, believe it or not, Amilcar Cabral was a hell of a soccer player. So much so that he could have been professional. He could have been a professional soccer player. That's how good Amilcar Cabral was. You know what I mean? And so that's one thing that I really like, because I'm a boxer, so that just shows that most radicals, they played a sport of some sort. You know what I mean? Fidel Castro, I believe, played basketball as well. You know, so, you know, with this being said, I like that, you know. I think there were different people. Walter Rodney, I think he did high jump, you know what I mean? So different radicals did different sports, right? Now another thing, and this is going to be the last thing about Amilcar Cabral, is that he disrupted the Portuguese economy. He formed his own economy. You know what I mean? He had a blueprint laid out. So he started like barter. He started microeconomies. He started to sell things less than Portuguese were selling things, because you have to understand, at the time Portuguese was excessively taxing people and doing the like thereof. So what Amilcar Cabral would do is he would just like cut out the middleman, you know. And so that's one thing that, you know, he said, in order to he basically was into just basically destroying the colonial economy. And that basically in a way affected my life in a certain sense that, you know, me, through being a you know, person who's self-employed, having my own, like building my own economy in different sectors, you know what I mean? And so that kind of affected me too, because, you know, he wanted enterprising. He wanted to like be people to be enterprising, and for the economy to just go beyond just what the Portuguese were doing. He wanted people to be imaginative, and that's why his agronomy came into play, because of the simple fact Portugal like just relied on certain crops. You know, there was only a couple of key crops, but he wanted to expand that. He wanted to plant different crops to add to the economy as well. You know, he understood the task ahead of him was going to be great. You know, the simple fact of the matter is, unfortunately, with his vision was never fulfilled. You know what I mean? Now, I'm just going to end on this note, because I can talk about Amilcar Cabral until the wheels fall off. But one thing that Amilcar Cabral wanted to do is he decided that it was necessary for him to re-Africanize himself. Now, granted, he didn't think of himself as a Portuguese. He thought of himself as a Semanado, meaning like a honorary type Portuguese, but ethnically he didn't think of himself as Portuguese. Now, the thing is that, you know, he was just expressing the blackness of Cape Verdeans. You know, granted that, you know, Cape Verdeans are, a majority of Cape Verdeans are a result of mixtures, you know, fusions. But the Africanness is still there. You know, don't let it fool you. The Portuguese will tell you that, you know, they discovered Cape Verde, but, you know, that's not the truth. That's another video in itself. The fact of the matter is, Cape Verde, it was already inhabited by Africans. It was already visited by like Muslims as well. You know, so you shouldn't fall for that gas, you know, that they spit at you. Now, he wanted to combine Guinea-Bissau and Portugal or Guinea-Bissau and Cabo Verde for the simple fact, like he even said in the book that, you know, Guinea-Bissauans and Cabo Verdeans are pretty much practically the same people. You know, I tend to agree with that. I mean, really, honestly, Cabo Verde is really just an extension of Senegambia, just on islands, you know what I mean? But, you know, that unfortunately failed, and the Portuguese tried to use divide and conquer. But that's one thing I can appreciate about Amilcar Cabral, is he was trying to fight tribalism. And, you know, and religion did not play a part in the unity struggle. You had animists, you had Catholics, and you had Muslims fighting side by side. You have Balantas, you have Creoles, you have Fulas, you have Mandinkas, you have Manjacas, you have Papels, you have Bishangos, all fighting side by side for a common cause. So they got past the tribalism, which I can appreciate. Now, if you talk to the typical Hotep Negro, he's going to tell you that you're just following an Arab man's religion, or he's going to tell you you're following a white man's religion. He's not going to look past that. He's not going to look at the common goal, and that's why I really mess with Mr. Amilcar Cabral. Last but not least, I want to say something else about him too, is that there were problems within the party. He addressed those problems. He did self-criticism. He took responsibility for his actions. Believe it or not, Amilcar Cabral was quite a savage. You know, he actually, people who did wrong and people who didn't want to fight, he actually had them executed. He was not playing around, you know, and that's a side of him that many people don't know about. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna be long-winded, so I might as well end it now, or else I'll be talking for another 5 hours about Amilcar Cabral. But basically, if it came down to it, if I had to look at the revolutionaries that impacted my life, it would it would be Maurice Bishop, Thomas Sankara, of course, Amilcar Cabral, and many others. But these are the three, you know, that are contemporary, not in regards to my faith, not in regards to my religious faith. Believe it or not, there's a lot of revolutionaries in my religious faith that I can go on and on about. But anyhow, man, this is his birthday today. Parabéns to Abel Cabral, Abel Djassi, and all I gotta say is obrigado for everything he put forth in A Luta Continua. Fula signing out. Njarama.